Hi, we are having the session on answering problem questions. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whenever you are watching this. Right, that's the beauty of the e-learning week. Now, the objective of this lecture, right, threefold objective. So I hope that by the end of this lecture, you will be able to understand the different skills which are required in answering a problem question. Secondly, you are able to state and apply the applicable law within the context of a factual scenario. And thirdly, the objective of this lecture is to test and to assess your students' knowledge by answering a thought problem question. So that will be at the end of the lecture. So yes, there is work for you to do, and you will need to do that work in order to show that you have actually watched this lecture. Now, I want to use back a slide that Ms. Hema used some weeks ago when she talked about answering essay questions, which I think is a very good quotation. We have to write to be understood, we have to speak to be heard, and we need to read to grow. So reading is so essential, and I hope that by now you would realize how important reading is for us to grow as law students and as lawyers. Then speak to be heard. Well, we had a session on oral presentation, so you need to speak to be heard. You don't speak to yourself. You don't speak without being able to communicate to others, because then there's no point in speaking. And finally, we need to write to be understood. Now, I have students who actually say that, well, I have this in mind, okay, but that's not good enough. When we mark your essays, when we mark your papers, we mark based on what is written, alright, or what is typed, and we are not marking based on what we think that you know. That's not going to be fair, because we don't really know what you think or what you actually know. So you have got to write in order to be understood, to reflect your understanding. So previously, Ms. Hema also talked about these preliminaries to writing skills. Three things which I thought that I will highlight again. I wonder how many of you can still remember it anyway. First will be presentation. Second will be spelling, grammar, punctuations, and finally language. Now, presentation, right? For basically for all these essays, it has got to be typed. And if you remember Dr. Shankar's talk earlier on, for exams, you make sure that you write properly and write legibly, that that we can read your handwriting. The presentation of a typed essay, right? You got to take into account the formatting. So the details will be given to you with the assessments. So normally you got to deal with the margins, make sure that pages are numbered, the font size and the font style. It's got to be 1.5 or double spacing. And then well, you got to be careful when you use bold or italics or underlining or different colors. In fact, you shouldn't really use it unless, like for cases, you usually italicize it. So presentation speaks a lot. Spelling, grammar, and punctuation. Right? You have got to make sure that your spelling is correct. It's so easy these days to be able to check your spelling, so there shouldn't really be an excuse. Now, for grammar, now I know some of you all, I've seen the case brief, some of you actually do struggle with grammar, right? I'm not saying this to put you down, I'm saying this to encourage you to try to improve on it, because at the end of the day, words are actually a very powerful tool for a lawyer and a law student. So you need to be able to communicate well orally and also in writing. So one of the ways is actually to write in short, clear sentences, and make sure that your tenses are correct. Use the correct tense. And finally, punctuation. Full stop, comma, colon, apostrophe. Paragraphs also are important. I have had this student who used to answer her exam questions. Everything for this question number 7, just one paragraph. Learn to break it up into different paragraphs, and it will be much neater and much easier for the examiner to follow and to mark your paper. English language is so important, right? Use simple, clear, plain English. Don't have to try to impress us with your vocabulary, big words. I know so many words. You speak to be understood. We just want to understand what you have to say. Communicate with us. So use a language of ordinary conversation, but having said that, it's got to be formal. It cannot be informal kind of language, right? So use ordinary conversation language, but it's got to be formal also. So things like apostrophe, instead of saying that he doesn't know, or I don't know, say he does not know or I do not know. And avoid Latin unless the phrase is embedded in the law. Okay, and finally, just to recap, the basic structure of an essay question is, well, three things. You need to have an introduction, and this is where you actually list down what you are going to say in your essay, and then the main part of it will be the body or the structural path. So this is the part where you actually answer the issues which you the question that is asked of you, and at the end of the day you conclude, give a summation of what you have stated. Right. Today we are supposed to talk about problem question. Now, what is a problem question? Problem question is a fictional scenario in which 2 or 3 characters are involved in an incident that raises a number of legal issues. You are asked to answer 1 or more questions regarding those issues. So there will be a fictional scenario, right? A made-up story about where there are a few characters. What happened? This person went there, he said this, he did that, and the other person did this, and the other person did that, right? And what they have done actually raises a number of legal issues, and you are asked, usually you're asked to advise the parties, right? Advise this person on what are his legal remedies, and things like that. So that's a problem, which means that there's a scenario, a problem arises, you are supposed to advise. So you see, for a problem question then, it's a very practical kind of question. It's almost like what you are going to do in practice in the future, where people come to you and people give you their scenario. This is what happened, I said this, I said this, I said this. Can you please advise me on what my rights are in law? So this is exactly what it should be, right? So for a problem question, we're not so much interested in what the law should be. We're more interested in what the law is. And you apply the law to the facts. Right? So you have a set of facts, you must need to know the law, and you apply the law to the facts. Okay? Whether is the law satisfactory, whether the law can be improved, it's not to be covered under problem question. Maybe for essay question, we're supposed to discuss or evaluate, then you can criticize, the law is not fair, the law is not good, etc., etc. But for problem question, we're not interested in that. For problem question, we're just interested in, identifying the issues, know what the law is, apply the law to the facts. Apply the law to the facts, apply the law to the facts. So when you approach a problem question, you must know your subject matter. Problem questions will arise in your taught paper and also in your contract paper. So there'll be a scenario, a contractual scenario or a tortious scenario. Read the question carefully, and then after that you answer the question. Now, reading the question carefully is very important. For essay questions, it could be very short. Normally it's very short, 2 lines, 3 lines. For a problem question, it will be in a paragraph or even more. Some problem questions can even span as long as maybe 3/4 of a page. So you have got to read the question carefully, right? Read the question carefully. Don't just jump into conclusion, because you need to answer the question. Not to show off what you know, but you need to answer what the question is asking. So just like a person comes up to you in future, and you are a lawyer, and says that, I have this problem, I have this. They're not going to be interested if you tell them, well, if you have that problem, then they're not interested. I wanted you to talk about my problem, so you need to listen carefully to my problem. So for a problem question, you need to talk about the problem in that question, you need to read it carefully. Now, for answering essay questions, you've seen is introduction, then there's the body, and there's a conclusion, right? IBC. But for problem question, is IRAC. Now, this is a method which a lot of people like to use. Basically, I stands for identify. So the first thing after reading the question, reading the problem question is you have to identify the issues involved. Then after that, you need to define, explain the legal rule, or to define, explain the law. So some people call it the ILAC. Some people call it the IRAC. Okay. A is then to apply the rule to the facts. And finally, C is a conclusion. So you need to identify the issues in this is whether was there a valid acceptance of the contract or not, for example. So what is the rule on acceptance of contract? So the rule of acceptance of contract is this. So now you know the rule already, you apply the rule to the facts, and you conclude. Therefore, after applying the rule to the facts, we conclude that there is a valid acceptance, or we conclude that there is no valid acceptance based on the law. So first thing, let's go through it one by one, identifying the issues. The most important skill is to be able to spot the relevant issues of law being raised. So when you read the question, you need to identify the issues. Sometimes the facts are put in there and some students may miss out on it. They miss out the whole issue, they don't discuss it, then they lose out on a lot of points. So, well, some exam questions are direct questions, but in problem questions, right, the area of the law is not clearly identified. So they're not going to tell you is that advise him on whether is there whether the consideration is a valid consideration or not. No, you just advise John, or what's the liability of Jane, right? Okay, so it's not clear. Then you will have to then identify, right? What is the advise John? What is it? Is the problem with the proposal, or is the problem with the acceptance, or the problem is that there's no intention to create legal relations, or what? So you will have to identify the issues. So you must work out what area of law to advise John about, or right, pick the issue the question is raising. So first step, you need an extra level of analysis. Work out what the question is about before trying to answer it. If you identify the correct legal issues raised in the questions, you will almost certainly pass, even if a discussion of them is poor, right? Now, I'm going to repeat that again. If you identify the correct legal issues raised in the question, you will almost certainly pass. So if you got all the issues, this is regarding this and this, there are 3 issues in this. You can identify it already. You're already almost halfway. The half battle is almost won already. The problem is that some students are not able to identify the issues. They miss out the issues. So if your answer is brilliant and well supported, well written, but it's the wrong issue, then you will fail. It just shows that you do not understand the area of law well enough to understand the issues. So you pick up the wrong issues, then that's it, right? You pick up the wrong issues, you're not going to get any marks, and therefore you will fail. So what must you do to avoid that? It's not very difficult actually. Read the question very slowly, very carefully. Don't rush through it. And make sure you understand. Not just the question, understand each word in the question. Some of you may have to, and I used to have that also, right? Read the question, read the books with a dictionary on the side. So you may want to use online dictionaries, but even then also you need to have a really good dictionary, right? Oxford Concise Dictionary, or Oxford Advanced Learners Dictionary. Now these are the really good dictionaries, and it's worth investing in it. Some of them actually come with CD-ROMs also, so you can actually load it into your laptop. So make sure you understand what it says, and you can underline or highlight the important words, the key words. Right? Aim to underline at least one thing relevant to a consideration of the issues in each paragraph. If you can't find anything, then you may have to reread the question, because you may have missed the issues. Okay? Always ask why. Just like a little kid, why Because it's this. Why is it this? Because of that. Why? You know, have this sense of curiosity. Ask why. So when you are reading, why are they telling us about this? Is it important or not? Why is this fact included in the question? Is it because they just want to make the question longer, or is it because it is important for some relevant issue? So what issue is this meant to make me think about? So sometimes when they say certain things, this happen, is actually asking you to talk about a certain area of law or a certain issue of law. Right? Am I given information which is quirky or out of the ordinary? What issue does this direct my attention to? So always ask why. When you read, is this important? Why is this put in the question? Why is this put in the question? And are words used similar to those in the case or statute? Then you know that's probably is referring to the principle in the case or that law in that statute. So a problem question is like a set of clues, right? If you identify all the clues, you will be able to spot the issues. Now, common mistakes are students skimming through because the question is so long and there's so many words sometimes, they just skim through it. You may pick up one issue, but you will certainly miss many others, right? So don't skim through it. You will probably miss some issues and you're going to lose a lot of marks. Skimming may be fast, but it is not effective. Okay, so that's identifying the issues. Next is to define the legal rule, right? The rule. What is the rule? What is the law? So the issue is about, for example, acceptance of a contract. What is the legal rule on acceptance of the contract? Now, in this slide here, it talks about torts, talks about duty of care. Now, this is very important, right? You should define the rule in detail as if the reader has no prior knowledge. So you talk about duty of care, you got to say what is this all about. If it comes from a case, state what case it comes about or statute. You know, some people have said that you sometimes have to treat your examiner as if they are absolute fools. They don't know anything. So you must show them, you must tell them everything. Don't assume that everybody knows what it is. Everybody knows what is it. Never make that kind of assumption. You see, the important thing is that those people who are marking your exam, your essays, they need to see that you know it, that you know. You don't just say it. People can just say things, but they do not know what it actually means. So you say it, and you got to show that you know what it means. So after defining the rule, then you got to apply it to the facts. Now this is a very important stage, and this is the place where you can actually distinct yourself from others. Because identifying the issues, usually most students will be able to identify most, if not all, the issues. And what the law is, everybody knows, everybody study hard, you remember what the law is. But the trick is that to be able to apply the law, apply the rule to the facts. So you will have to, okay? And you have to explain, you know, in this kind of situation, you don't just conclude, you must explain. In this kind of situation, the facts are this, the law is that. You apply it. So if you apply the law to these facts, then you will come to this conclusion. So students normally lose mark because they don't apply it to the facts. They just talk about the facts, they talk about the law, and they expect the examiner to make the connection. No, you are supposed to do it. You must apply the law to the facts of the case. Finally, conclude. So what is your advice? What do you advise them? He is liable, right? He owes a duty of care. He has been negligent. He has committed a criminal offense. There is a breach of contract. Okay. So what are the remedies that are available? Now have an answer plan, right? So you need to know where you are heading to at the end of the day. So make sure you have a plan to be able to deal, or else it's got to be very systematic. Answering a problem question is like, if you are a science student, it's like answering a mathematical problem or physics problem, right? There's a formula, then there are the facts, there's the calculation, the numbers there, the problem is there, then you apply the formula to the question, and you got to do it orderly, and you come to your conclusion. So issues, law, application, conclusion. And usually for problem question, you don't need an introduction. You can just jump right into it. The next thing is that don't rewrite the facts of the case. Some people, they actually waste a lot of time and they reproduce the facts of the case in. So they start off by saying that in this case, John has done this and Jane has done this, and you're just wasting time. It's all stated in the question. So don't waste your time, don't waste your number of words that you have. Now, the other thing is that you should avoid writing everything you know about the topic. So if you see that, this is regarding acceptance, then you just, everything about acceptance you put in. But it could be acceptance by post. So some other law on a rule on acceptance may not be relevant. So don't just write everything you know about that topic. It's like the shotgun method, where you take a shotgun, you just shoot, and you shoot a lot of pellets and hope that some of the pellets will hit the target. No, I think that as lawyers, as law students, we should be more like a sniper, right? Have one bullet, and you actually know what you want to hit at. Next is to provide references to appropriate authorities to support your answer. Okay, so when you state the law, you will need to show authority. What makes you say that the law is this? What makes you say that this kind of acceptance is valid? What makes you say that this kind of consideration is not good consideration? You must back it up with authorities. That's very important. It's not what you think or what you want it to be. It's the law. And why is it the law? Because the case says so, because the statute says so. You must support your answer with the authorities. And remember that you're being tested on your ability to apply legal rules to the factual scenario. Well, practice makes perfect. That means the more you do, the better you will become. And you know yourself best also, right? Some people, they are very good at essay questions. Some people, they are very good at problem questions. And some people, they are just very good at everything. Okay, so you know yourself best. And, you have to then decide what kind of questions you want to do in the exams when you have the option. Now, before I end, and yes, this is the last slide already. Basically, this is an exercise. So the lecture actually took very short only, but for the rest of the remaining of the time, you are supposed to do this. It's a very short and simple problem for you to try to apply what you have learned. And all of you must actually submit your answers to me by email by the end of the e-learning week. That means by the Friday, 3rd of October. Right, Friday, 3rd of October. You should submit your answers to me. Your answers doesn't have to be written out in an essay form. It should be just in bullet points. So point form is good enough. Put it in point form. Alright, this is a problem question. Tim walks into a table. Tim is walking to a table. He trips, falls, lands on broken glass. A piece of glass is lodged deep in his neck. He's bleeding. Help me. He says, I'm a doctor. I can help. I just need to cut into your neck to take the glass out. Tim says, no, don't cut me. Dawn says that, but if you could die if I don't do that. And she goes ahead and cuts it out, and Tim survives. Now, why is Dawn? Basically, has Dawn committed a cautious wrong, right? Is she liable in tort to Tim or not? So list down what are the issues. I already helped you with the issues already. What is the law on the area? And then apply it to the facts and come to your conclusion. Advise Dawn whether is she tortiously liable for anything. So this wouldn't take more than a page, in fact less than a page, just put it out in bullet points. Okay, so send it to me, and then and then I will give the feedback on it, and I'll also give an example of answer. You see that the example of the bullet point answer is going to be pretty short, right? It's pretty straightforward and simple area. And I believe that this is an area in thought which you have already covered earlier on in this semester. So it's not something that you do not know what to do, okay? Now, if you do not send me the answers by Friday, then you will not be marked as present for this lecture. That means you'll be marked as absent. So the answers that you send me is proof that you have attended this lecture. Okay? Alright then, thank you. Hi, we are having the session on